Okay, and Wendy, if you want to unmute yourself, we will start Zoom and Tell.
Okay, good evening, everyone. You've probably mid-evening for you when it's senior dinner hour for me. So I just wolfed down a dinner and we're ready to go. I have never been a smoker. It's the elegance of the pieces produced to further promote smoking by the female population in the 1930s that intrigues me. First, a little history of tobacco. I just thought this was kind of interesting. Tobacco had been used in the Americas for centuries before travelers introduced it to Europe, reaching England in 1565. Smoking wasn't popular with everyone, and in 1604, King James I wrote a counterblast to tobacco, which dismissed smoking as loathsome to the eye, hateful to the nose, harmful to the brain, and dangerous to the lungs. Throughout the 1600s, the demand for tobacco continued to grow, as it was believed to have medicinal value as well as recreational value. It was even used to ward off the plague. Now, we can maybe semi-relate to this with our recent COVID experience and various things being touted as the cure for the COVID. So smoking maybe was going to cure the plague. By the 1700s, most tobacco came from American plantations, where its ready availability was reflected in the steadily increasing size of British clay pipe bowls. Until the end of the 1800s, cigarette smoking, though, was rare, as cigarettes were considered handmade luxury items. Once automated cigarette making machines were developed in the late 1800s, the tobacco market was transformed and made cigarettes affordable. Health concerns about smoking persisted, and the Children's Act of 1908 included a clause forbidding the sale of tobacco to anyone under the age of 16. I didn't realize the legislation went back that far to try to get the young people to not smoke. Around 1914 to 1918, cigarette sales had exceeded those of pipe tobacco. And where pipe smoking was seen as being for males, cigarettes targeted both men and women. Consequently, many glass companies, including Cambridge, cashed in, making and selling a wide range of ashtrays and cigarette holders, as well as tobacco jars. It is estimated that by 1949, 81% of men and 39% of women smoked. My research has shown that during the near-cut era, several covered tobacco or cigar jars and covered cigarette boxes can be found. It appears that Cambridge initially targeted the male smokers with the array of tobacco jars, humidors, plain ashtrays, and plain cigarette boxes. While primarily made in crystal, several of these items are also found in ebony, as well as occasionally in jade and azurite. It'd be nice if I saw one of those tonight, jade or azurite. The 1927 to 29 catalog pages show rather plain ashtrays, cigarette holders, covered boxes, stacking ashtray sets, and humidors. Obviously, the number of female smokers had not yet influenced the manufacture of smoking accessories designed to catch the attention of women. The next reference book I have represents the first half of the 1930s. The smoker's items are only shown on a few pages and still rather plain and masculine. However, a nice variety of ebony, silver decorated ware and color decorated sport novelties depicting Scotty dogs, sporting games and teams, and Art Deco designs are shown, as well as crystal decorated varsity sport glassware. Ebony items decorated with silver were not silver encrusted etchings, but are transfer designs and may be found in colored enamels as well as silver. Production of silver decorated ebony smoking items stopped before 1940. The number 3011 figure stem line, also known as statuesque, was introduced in 1931. And this line is where my interest in Cambridge smoking items started. The popularity of this line was at its height in the late 1930s and early 1940s, when smoking was very popular with women. Smoking items offered in this line were the cigarette box and cover in 2 heights and the ashtray. The 1949 Cambridge catalog, the first issued since 1940, had only 2 pages of smokers' items. Some of the lines introduced in the late 1940s and early 50s were Cascade and Cambridge Square, which haven't had any interest for me. My collection consists mainly of the statuette pieces, 1337 cigarette holders, 1066 cigarette holders, 3590 cigarette holders, 1312 covered cigarette boxes, and some miscellaneous ashtrays. So I'd like to show you an example of what I have in my collection, and then a couple of additional pieces from other companies, since I don't think we are all purist Cambridge collectors, but I hope that we all appreciate other companies' glassware also. Okay, I have only one of the 3011 Cambridge statuette boxes. I have the tall one in the forest green. I have several colors of the 3011 ashtray. This one is in Moonlight. I've got several colors of the 3590 cigarette holder. Now, what I'm curious about, and hopefully maybe Norman or someone else who collects these can tell me, is they're listed as torchère under the same number and also as a cigarette holder. Some of them have a domed bottom like this one, and a lot of them have the cupped bottom, which I assume is the ashtray. So I'm wondering if anyone can explain why they were called torchère or why they were called cigarette holder, and if there's a difference. Does anyone want to pipe up now, or do they know anything?
Unmute, Norman.
Norman, you got on mute.
I've wondered the same thing, and I have
Oh.
similar situations. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have examples with the cup bottom and some with the flat bottom as well. So I first thought they were drinking glasses, and when I found out they were cigarette holders, I just started collecting them. I have a very small selection of them. So
I did buy a couple of mine as champagnes off of eBay.
yeah, they're great flutes.
Well, great. Well, okay, that's still a mystery then. Torchère versus cigarette holder. Okay, and then I'll have another question coming up with the next two. I have the 1066 Aurora oval cigarette holder, and that has a cupped foot. Have this in several colors. That's the nice Aurora stem there. But then I assumed these were Aurora, but when I'm doing my research here, they have the Aurora looking middle, but yet these are called 1312. Let's see. Yeah, no, 1314 3-inch footed ashtray. Norm, do you have any explanation as to why these aren't Aurora?
I do not, and I thought they were the same.
Well, I found them in one of.
I'll chime in
Right.
on this one, Wendy, because I have the same thing, and that perplexed me from the very beginning. It is the exact same stem as you see, but Cambridge, for whatever reason, did not put that in the 1066 line. It is, you're right on the number, it's a 1314, but it is the exact same stem as the 1066 one.
Do you think it's because it's stretched a little bit?
It's not stretched that I've seen on my examples. Are yours elongated?
Which one are you saying is elongated? The oval cigarette holder, Norm?
The ashtray. But your cigarette holder is
Uh,
elongated as well. Yeah, so
yeah, I don't think there's. Yeah, I don't
But
think
on-
there's a difference.
on regular tumblers, they are a little more rounded. The Aurora stem line.
Oh, yes, it's just the difference between those two items. They are the exact same. So yeah, it differs when you get into other pieces. You're right.
Well, that's very curious.
Another mystery. Okay. Then my next one, where's my list? Where's my list? Oh. Are the 1337 with the spiral stem. I had a bunch of these. I mean, I had these in almost all colors till there was an accident and the table got knocked over. And I have a bunch of the Fostoria ones that I consider being similar. So I've collected both. Now I find the Fostoria one, which is this ruby one with the panel sides, to be a little bit more exciting than the Cambridge one, in my opinion. Then we've got the 1312 footed cigarette box. And I was unable to find, you see these all over the place. The Cambridge Chantilly cigarette urn is what I see them listed as and whatever, but I have not found it in my catalog pages. So I'm just going by what everybody else has been calling these. I did find a catalog page that says that these swans, the number 1040 swan, is an ashtray, but I guess it's also collected as a salt, I believe. I have this is a 3500 129 Gadroon 3.5-inch square ashtray. And it looks like a Hawks type gray cutting on it. And then also in the Gadroon line are these 3500 125. These are stacking ashtrays. This one happens to be with the Adonis cut on it. And they come in a set of 5 stacking ashtrays. This is the 3.5-inch one. I don't have a whole stack. Then I've got a couple of little, not very exciting Caprice items. This is the Caprice triangular cigarette holder. And I've got an Alpine. I hate moving this from the camera. An Alpine. This is the number 213, 2 3/4-inch 3-footed ashtray. Now also has a place, God, go the wrong way here. Also have a place for the place card holder here, and the cigarettes over here on the sides. And last but not least in my collection, before two from another company, is the seashell line. There's a lot of these out there. This one has the Gardenia Charlton etch on it in Crown Tuscan. And the last two I'd like to show from other makers is, I do have a collection of CF Monroe Wavecrest, Nacara, Helva stuff. This is the CF Monroe Nacara ashtray. And it's got the Ormulu on the top, and you rest your cigarettes on that circular rim. And it's marked on the base. It's a good size piece. And lastly, I got a Heisey Alexandrite Empress ashtray. This is one of those that changes color. in the lighting. So that about is a representation of what I have. I've got some of these in multiple colors, and I'm sure I'm going to see some things that now I absolutely have to have once everybody shows me their stuff. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy. And as always, we always see everybody else's stuff that we want to. But I found it really interesting in your discussion about smoking that obviously as early before the 1600s, they said it was bad for you. So it's like anything, if they tell you it's bad for you, you obviously want to do it more. So obviously, you know, things have not changed through the centuries too much. But thank you so much for that and sharing your collection. I love the I can't say it, Nakaru.
Nakara.
Nakara. That's a
Nakara.
beautiful piece with the ormolu, or however you say it, on the top. And I think we'll see some other with like an ormolu decoration of such, I think, forthcoming. So again, thank you. I know it takes time to put all that information together, and obviously sharing your collection is really, we really appreciate it. So with that,
You're welcome.
we'll move on to the others, and we'll all see what everyone else has, and obviously think I need to have that as well. So let's tonight start with Greg Voss, and we'll put Sue Cameron on deck. So Greg, are you still there? You'll have to unmute. Did we lose him?
He's still there. He's unmuting.
Can you unmute? I'm asking him to unmute.
Okay. Okay, can you
There
hear
we
me?
go. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't have many smoking items, but I pulled a couple out that I thought might be interesting. I got these at two different times, maybe a few years apart, but they're these little figural animals. Little elephant here with a piece of Cambridge glass in the top, little ashtray, very small. But the elephant's kind of interesting. It's got little tusks that they painted white. And the little ashtray sits on the top. This one, I assume this one is not marked, but I assume that's Tahoe blue ashtray. And I would like to know who, if anybody knows who made these. And the second one is not a standing elephant, but a reclining elephant. And it's got sort of a reddish finish on it. And this one has a amber ashtray, and it is marked on the base. And it's got the tusks are painted on that one also. Yeah, so two little elephant cigarette holders. And then this one, I got this out of Dave Ray's booth at convention one year, and I don't know if I should show this or not. It's started by, I think it was an experimental thing that Cambridge did, and they started, I think they stopped it immediately because, well, it's something that children might have, and I don't know if you really want this, but this is the smoking rabbit box. It's pretty bad. Like I said, it was discontinued on, but when you light it, the smoke will come out the back if there's any smoke in the ashtray. And it's, yeah, cute, but perhaps harmful to young, innocent people. That's all I have.
Oh, thank you. That is so funny.
I'm appalled that David Ray would sell that.
Yes, obviously, you know, terrible.
He gave me good price on it.
I bet.
All
I have
about
never,
portrait.
yeah, I've never seen those elephants before, and I just find them fascinating. Now, are they like a cast metal, or are they?
Yes. Yeah, they're metal, all right. I have no idea what kind of metal. I assume there's some sort of brass alloy.
If they're called pot metal,
What's that? Pot metal?
pot metal, POT metal.
Yeah, those are really interesting. I know Scott will know, but I like African animals, and I have several sets of different glassware that have like the African theme on them, and those I have to find those. I'll just have to find them. That's all there is to it. So thank you for sharing those. Those are very unique, and I've never, really thought of them being in that kind of holder before. So that's very, very interesting. So thank you.
There's Julie, because Kathy wants a set too.
Yeah, does she? Okay, we'll find him. I promise, we'll find him. Well, thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. And take those cigarettes away from the bunny. It's not good.
I'll do that.
Okay. So next we'll have Sue, and then we'll put Gwinnell on deck.
Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, can you let me share screen, Julie?
Oh, share the screen? I can. Let me do that. All right, you should be able to share the screen.
Okay, one of these days, I'm going to get on the iPad so I can not be in the room with the big computer. My complexion is pretty
Oh, we can't see it yet.
to Caprice. And see,
Make it.
is that okay? Can you? It's showing the whole thing.
Okay, we're not seeing the whole thing though.
What are you seeing?
Just like the very top edge of it. Like we're not seeing the whole picture.
Oh,
Unfortunately.
okay. Well, okay.
Maybe go out and come back in. Sometimes that
How
works.
about that? Did that work?
No.
Okay, your screen sharing is paused. Okay, I'm going to stop the sharing. Go back. Okay, share the screen. Go to photos, share. Okay, do you have it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, this is an overview of my Caprice items. And as I said, mine's pretty specialized. This is the stack set, very ordinary. You see it in blue, but in lots of other color combinations, blue, clear, yellow, white. But there are the three sizes, 6, 4, and 3 inches. Then this is called an ashtray, but it's also, as close as I can decide, is the same thing as a coaster. I have used these as coasters forever and was really surprised to see that they call them an ashtray, a 212 3.5-inch ashtray. What the difference is, I do not know. So then also in the same vein was the little 95 2-inch 4-footed almond or salt or an ashtray. So I'd never heard this one called an ashtray. It's very small. There's no place to lay a cigarette. And then we have the cigarette boxes that everyone's seen, and the little 3-inch 3-footed card holder ashtray. And what I didn't know is that they sold the large cigarette box without the lid and called it a soap dish. So if you ever find one without the lid, you've got a soap dish. The large one was also sold with the 3-inch triangular ashtrays as a set. The smaller cigarette box was always sold with the little card holder ashtrays. So, and then the triangular ashtrays, there's the big one that was sold with a set. Let's see. The big one was sold with the 3-inch triangular ashtrays as a set. And the small one, there's also the 4-inch ashtray. It's what it's sitting in now. The 3-inch ashtray was used as a set. And then the little individual cigarette holder was sold on as a 2-piece set. Individual ashtray, individual cigarette holder. And you'll see the different sizes here of the ashtrays. And the next one, I hope you see the difference in the height of these two little ashtrays. They're both the same measurement in diameter, but this little one is much shorter. It's approximately 1/4 of an inch at least shorter than the heavier one. It's almost, and it's lighter weight. It's almost feels like it might be a hand-blown thing, but obviously it's not. So anyway, that was something. I'd never heard of those being sold only as a set, a 2-piece set, but they were. Oh, okay, and those are the 3. Oh, and then I have, the last thing I have is the card holder ashtray. And it's cut. And when I first got it years ago, I sent up a letter to the Cambridge website, and Mark Nye responded and said he thought that was an unknown cutting, but it might be the possibly the number 655 cutting that was shrunk down to fit on this card holder ashtray. So, and that's the cutting on the foot, and it does have the cupped bottom. So anyway, that's all I have.
Well, thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. And it's really interesting that there's just that slight incremental difference in height between those 2 ashtrays.
Yeah, and there was one thing I was going to say too. This larger one was made with a candle well in it. And I've collected Caprice for eons, and I've never seen one that had the candle well. If anybody ever finds one, be sure and let me know right away. So, anyway, that's all I have to share today, y'all.
Well, thank you so much. And it's always nice to see an overview and a side by side so you can really see that size comparison. So
Great.
Thank you for that.
You bet.
And now if I can have you stop sharing, there we go. Thank you. And very interesting. Does anyone know why there would be like the candle holder in the bottom? Does anyone know? Okay.
I'm not sure why they put a candle holder in the bottom, but I've been collecting Caprice since 1988, and I've never seen one. I don't know of anyone else who has ever seen one either, but it is shown in the catalog as a candle holder.
Yeah. David, have you ever noticed the difference in the 3.5-inch triangular ashtrays? The little ones?
I have noticed that they are not distinguished in the catalog.
No.
So my guess is they may have just simply changed the mold at some time, going from the heavier version to the lighter version, maybe to save on glass.
Well, and I wondered if they made those specifically for that little individual cigarette holder.
I would say that those small triangular ashtrays do go with the smaller triangular cigarette holder.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for imparting that for us and letting us have a little more information. I always find these Zoom-a-tells always provide me with some knowledge that I did not have before I showed up. So I always
And you
thank
know,
everyone.
when you've collected Caprice all these years, you can still learn something new every time you get in that case and really start looking.
Yes. Well, thank you so much again for sharing, Sue. It's always wonderful to see parts of your collection.
Thank you.
So next we'll go to Gwinnell and we'll put Barb Ritchie on deck, please.
Well, good evening, everybody. And Sue, I enjoy your Caprice, and I've got some of the same items. So I've got the little triangle ashtray. This one's in Alpine. Then the 4-inch, substantially and quite heavy. And you can see the difference in the height between the two of them. Same with the cigarette holders. We got the little holder. And then the big one in the Alpine. And again, it is quite heavy. So those are some of the same that I've got with Sue. The round, this is the yellow or the gold crystal. And you can tell the difference with the gold crystal because there's the Mandarin gold cigarette box. And then you can tell the difference in the two colors. In the small cigarette box in the Windsor blue, which they then shifted over and was calling it seashell. And toward the end, when they started putting ebony out, they did the shell and they sold it as a set with a plain crystal lid with the rectangle ashtrays. And one other, it's not Cambridge, it's not glass, but it is cute. It's an individual place card holder. It's got the slot in this one up here for the card, for a cigarette holder and an ashtray. And it is China out of England. Which I thought was cute, as well as attractive. So that's what I brought to share.
Well, thank you. I think it's interesting how, you know, not only the glassware, but the porcelain manufacturers also picked up on women smokers, marketing to the women smokers, and, you know, so forth. And I kind of look at it as well, where the petite ashtrays in the Caprice line really modeled for the women to be a little more petite and look a little more glamorous because they're smaller in comparison to the larger size. I don't know. It's just a marketing question I would have. But it's again, very interesting how you see this, them going after the demographic of females. So thank you for sharing with us that. That's very interesting. Next, we have Barbara, and we will put Jeff and Mary on deck, please.
Oh, excuse me. I have a few that have already been discussed. One, I have two statuesques. One, I have the cigarette, only I didn't know it came with a cover, and I bought it without the cover. So if anybody has a cover, let me know. I would be very interested to purchase it. And I also have, I thought I was getting a match set, but I did not. A different color. And I have this in the ashtray. Those are the two I have that have already been presented. And then the other one I have, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
The other one I have is Rose Point, a set of four cigarette ashtrays that I actually got on eBay. I try to stay away from it. It's too dangerous. But this is 4 little ashtrays, and I got that. And then what I have are a few cigarette items that are not Cambridge. But I'm glad somebody else mentioned the fact that we can share those that are not, because I love them. So what I have is a set, interestingly, of an ashtray, and a little cigarette box. And interestingly, I collect powder jars, and I have a powder jar, obviously made by the same manufacturer. I just took the cover. And then I have another one, another ashtray, and this one's called Butch. I don't know who and then I found out that I have a powder jar that matches it also. So it's expanding. It's not Cambridge, but I love them. And then I have one more that I don't think is Cambridge either, and that is another ashtray. I have the Crown Tuscan seashell cigarette box and ashtrays, but they're not here in this apartment, so I couldn't show that to you. But these are all the ones I have as a non-smoker. I did collect these. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Those little dogs are just the cutest.
They call this one Butch for some reason. I just adore this one. It's called Butch.
Bulldog?
It's a bulldog.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see?
Very interesting. And again, it's very interesting to see how they've made different manufacturers use different techniques and then put them into the other lines, such as you said, the powder jar.
Here's the
Then you
powder
have
jar.
Yes, the matching accessories. So I find it very interesting that, not only did Cambridge do that, also many of the other glass companies did that as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's always interesting to me to see other manufacturers and what, how they may have copied some of the design, but also how they made it their own.
Yep.
So thank you so much,
Thank you.
Barbara.
Thank you.
So next we have Mary and Jeff, and then we will put Jeff on deck.
Well, Barbara, here's since you brought that one up, here's Butch in pink. So, and I think Ellie Smith made Tom can confirm that. And I think Ellie Smith also made the powder jars. Wasn't it Greensburg that made the little cigarette box, the dog cigarette box? Yeah. Yeah, those I love those. We so the only statuesque piece we have in the cigarette box is the Crown Tuscan, and of course we love Crown Tuscan, so we have that and the Crown Tuscan statuesque ashtray. And I think we bought these both from the museum, so the museum gift shop. So it's a great place to shop.
Oh, beautiful.
Also, and this is you already saw this one tonight. Wendy had this one in the, with the Aurora stem, and this is in the cobalt blue. And then we have, one of the reasons I like cigarette items so much is I really like boxes. And so this is a little cigarette box with the Porsche decoration on it. And then we went to a estate sale. They had, the person was a Tiffin collector, and they had a lot of black satin Tiffin glass. And I picked up this little box and I thought, oh, there's a chip in the side. And then I opened it up and realized it's a cigarette box. It's got the ashtray spaces in it, but it also had the Cambridge label on it. So that had to come home with us. And then just a couple more things that we brought out, but one is the dolphin set with the green, and the ashtrays are green. The lid is crystal, of course. This one does have a little chip on it, so we'll someday replace it with a good bottom. I think this is probably one of the first things we bought was at a try and tip it so you can see it, at a flea market. And I think the person who sold it said his parents got it as a wedding present. And it's the cigarette box, the seashell box with the ashtrays. But they all have the labels on them. And on the bottom of the box, it does have a sticker that says Cambridge 207-213 Caprice CRYS. So we like finding pieces with the original labels too. So That's all we brought tonight.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's always interesting to see like how things were packaged along with, you know, how they were presented in the showroom. And certainly, you know, we forget about in that era, wedding gifts, everyone smoked. So you of course gave them smoking items and crystal, and it was beautiful. And you kind of forget about that as a gift per se, because we wouldn't do it today probably, but in yesteryear, it was probably extremely popular. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think it's really always interesting to find something in its an original box, because it kind of tells the story along with the item as well. So very interesting. So thank you so much for sharing. Okay, next we'll do Jeff, and then we will put David on deck.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Well, this is what I've got. It's let me find the camera here. The two 3590 ashtrays or cigarette holders with the ashtray bottoms. Two of those in Carmen. And it's just kind of funny that a small town antique store had them, that you wouldn't think you'd find anything like that around here. And that was amazing. So I just had to have them. And of course, this here one, the seashell line in Crown Tuscan. And that's what I've got.
Well, thank you. And I know that there was a question earlier, the difference between the discussion on the torchère versus the cigarette. And Stu did say something in the chat box that he might have an answer to that. So Stu, do you want to pipe in quickly about what you think?
Yeah, first of all, I think they're both called torchères, and they're also cigarette holders. But in the era of the 1930s and 1940s, torchère lamps were really popular. And they may have taken off on that, considering that it's a smoking thing and lighting it up and all that type of thing. But they might have taken off the name from the lamps. But the torchère lamps were the ones on a tall pedestal, or tall rod or whatever. Probably everybody's seen them, that would stay in the back of a couch or something like that. And I think that the look of that, the stretch out look, also kind of takes off on the torchère. So I think that they used the name that was popular at the time.
That's a really good point, because the torchères typically, and I have several, they have a rounded bottom that's quite weighted or heavy. And then, like you said, a very thin stem that comes up and then to a larger area too. That is the light shade. So that's a really good point. It could be a takeoff on that. I hadn't really thought of that. So thank you for sharing that with us, Stu. And obviously, Jeff, thank you for sharing those. And I always find it amazing that you can walk in to like your local place that you've been into a million times and you never see anything. And then all of a sudden you walk in and you're like, wow, when did that piece of Cambridge show up? So you always find Cambridge, I find, in the oddest places and when you least expect it, which is part of the joy of searching for Cambridge pieces, obviously. So thank you for sharing with us. So with that, we'll move on to David, and then we will put Mike Strebler on deck.
Thank you, Julie. One of the funnest things, or one of the things I really do enjoy about Zoom and Tell, is how some people present their items and the item has never been seen before, but to them, they've seen it in their collection for many, many years. So they think everyone must have that item stored away somewhere. And the item this evening is one of the ones that was shown earlier. It was Wendy's torchère that looked like it may have had the Adonis cutting on it. Wendy, I remember one of those selling on eBay a few years ago. I don't know if that's the one that you purchased off of eBay, but that's the only one I've ever seen. And I've seen some fairly advanced collection. So that piece is really an uncommon piece to find. So to find a crystal torchere with an etching or a cutting on it is extremely rare. So that was fun to see that piece this evening. And also when the Adonis cut ashtray, the little 2.5, 3-inch ashtray, that was also a butter pat. So you'd mentioned that you had the 3500 ashtrays, the stackable ones. Did you have more than just the smallest size? Do you have more of that cutting on the various sizes of that ashtray?
No, this is the only one I have, and I believe this is the middle size. This
Okay.
is 3.5 inch, I believe.
Okay. I just know that the
So I think
smallest one that they made was also a butter pat, and maybe you never know if it was it cut as an ashtray or was it cut as a butter pat, but they're the same thing. They were used interchangeably. So that was kind of fun to see
Okay.
those items tonight. I'm going to
Thank
start
you for
off
the
with,
information on the torchere.
oh, you're very welcome. I'm going to start off tonight with an ashtray. I collect violet, is one of my favorite colors. And this is one of the later production pieces in the reopen period after 1956. It's called the Hambone ashtray. This is the smaller one, and it is in the violet color. You can see a little light coming through the bottom. It's got a little fire to the bottom. And so this was a great piece that I picked up at convention several years ago. But as an ashtray, I believe it was also made in violet in the larger size, as well as the bow tie ashtray, which would be awesome. I have a couple of cigarette boxes. I don't collect smoking items. I know that got me in trouble a couple months ago, but this is a Crown Tuscan ashtray with the golden crusted Diane etching on the outside. These early items do have the Crown Tuscan mark on the bottom. The lid comes off. Quite a cool piece. Usually you see these cigarette boxes on a stand, but this is just one of the flat cigarette boxes. The item on a stand, here's an example of that. This is in Heather Bloom, etched Portia. The lid is also etched Portia. It comes off, and the foot is crystal. Sometimes people have trouble distinguishing between Heather Bloom and sun purple glass. Well, you can clearly see that the top part has a lavender color to it, and the bottom is crystal. So you know this is actually Heather Bloom because both the foot and the box would be the same color if it was sun purple. Another cigarette box that I was super excited to find a few years ago is the Yale cigarette box. It's a larger size. It's got the blue enamel. It's got a perfectly ground bottom on it, super high polish. And then the lid has the Yale Bulldog, and it says Yale Bulldog on it. How appropriate. And then my final two items are tobacco jars. I got these relatively recently. This one is ebony. You can see that, well, you can't see inside that one very well. This is called a tobacco jar. It's not a humidor or anything like that. So it did not come with an insert to keep the tobacco moist. And then a similar piece that is awesome if you're into putting the black light onto your glass collection. This thing really pops. This one is in the light emerald color. It's exactly the same piece, but you can see it a little bit better being in a transparent color. It has a nice star design molded into the base. So those are a few of the smoking items I have this evening. Thank you, Julie.
Oh, thank you, David. Those are really interesting. What line would those be? It almost reminds me of community line. Does it come from that line, or is it just a separate item on the black and the emerald?
You're right. With the panels going around the outside, the nice star on the bottom, it makes you think of the community line. I think I didn't check that carefully, but I'm guessing this could possibly be an accessory piece to the community line. It does show up in azurite as well. So if it isn't specifically in the community line, it certainly could be added to that very easily.
Yeah, those are really interesting. And obviously the cigarette box with the Diana is outstanding. So thank you for sharing those with us. It's always interesting to see, again, we never think of all the different items that are in the smoking line. And we always think of the humidors, but obviously not of the tobacco jars. So thanks for sharing those with us. It's much appreciated. So with that, we'll move to Mike Strebler, and then we will put Les on deck.
Well, thanks, Julie. And following David in the lineup, I mean, what can you do after Babe Ruth bats ahead of you? I mean, so I did walk around the various collections and kind of picked out stuff that I had that was smokers items. I wish my lighting was better because I have cuttings. The only thing I'll start off with trying to keep up with the David. This is a gold encrusted Porsche on crystal cigarette box. And that's I've enjoyed this. I have a few of these cigarette boxes with the big feet on them. What you don't find much is just a box. And then I had to move my gold encrusted Porsche collection. That's where I knew where all this was. This is okay, there we go. The cigarette holder, which is 1312. Is that right? Did I hear that number correctly tonight? Jack, say something. No? Okay. All right. Then I brought some cuttings. And the interesting thing and my lighting, I apologize, is not that good. But the interesting thing I found on these boxes is the cuttings on the sides don't generally match the tops. So if you see one out there in the wild and you think it might be put together, actually, anytime you see a Cambridge cigarette box lid by it, because somebody's missing one someplace. So that was one cutting I had. And then here was another one. This is just less elaborately cut. And again, the top doesn't really match the thing.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Oh, you like that one? Do you think it does, Barbara?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess you guys got me there. I'll go with that. I got a match set. Thank you.
It matches beautifully.
Okay, I like it. Let me see what else is in the cart. Okay, there's a cut Achilles cigarette holder. And little round ashtray, Achilles. Let's see if I can get I can't get this one to show at all. It's just a little round thing. It's pretty cool.
How big is that one, Mike?
I'm going to say it looks like about 3.5 inches for 3 inches, something like that. And I've been collecting cuttings a long time, and you just don't find them that much. I don't know why. Maybe they just didn't do them. And then I had a series of these. This would be King Edward with the foot. And I like this one. Well, some people think it's too simple, but it's Manor. And I believe this is Adonis here on this one. But those are the only 3 cuttings that I've found on these round ashtrays, and no other ashtray other than this one stem that I've seen cut. This is just a comment. We've seen this before. This is the Windsor, and just in case anybody hasn't heard it before, this is the only size this thing comes in. I would like to have a bigger one, but I don't think it exists. And let's see. I had the little Windsor ashtray with the, and then there's this thing, which, and people call that a candle holder, but I believe it's a cigarette snuffer in the middle.
Mhm.
So for what that's worth, I've imparted some knowledge. But then I had a lot more stuff in royal blue. This little blue ashtray, I believe it's the ashtray that goes on the nude cigarette or the nude ashtray. It's just a little thing. It's a tough little thing to find. I've seen one. And then this was, you see this ashtray sometimes, it's kind of a tilted thing. That's it sitting flat, and but it tilts. And I've seen it in other colors too, so I was happy to get that in blue. And then just another size of ashtray in blue. I collect, we have a pretty good collection of royal blue. That's the only reason I have this. I don't particularly collect smokers items, but they show up in royal blue quite a bit. Here's the same ashtray on a foot. Put it in unfooted. And this one's bigger than the first little one that I showed you. So I don't know what size. Here's the comparison of the two. A tally ho piece with a ashtray well. It's got places for the cigarettes and a handle here in the middle. And nobody's had one of these yet, but we might see one. I think it's a smoker's item. It's got an ashtray foot. I don't know. Anybody got a comment on that thing?
Yeah, they're cigarette holders. And they
Is that
have
what-
yeah, and they have the thing for the matches on the side.
Okay.
The
You know, that's a good point, Stu. Most people say that's for name cards or place cards. I'll bet you're right. It's for it's matches, isn't it?
Yeah. It could be used for either.
All right. So there's that. This we've seen before. I don't know if anybody can see that. I see Stu's iPads, what I see on my screen.
No, I can see you.
There we go. Okay. So the interesting thing about these is these things have gotten rarer as nude stems showed up with the tops. You know, somebody killed the elephant in order to get the ivory. Well, that's what's happened to these things. Is somebody cut a lot of these? I won't say a lot, but some of them. So watch if you see a nude stem with one of these tops. Make sure it's not glued in here. And you know, I had Mary knew what this was. She had the numbers on it, but I don't. But I got one. And then the last one I got is this big old ring stem ashtray, which is kind of a cool thing. So that's what I got in the way of smoking items. I hope you enjoyed them. I mean, that's
Yes.
I don't really collect smokers items, but when I went around to the various, oh, wait, the best is still here. I collect something called Yukon, which is a bunch of frosted concentric rings. And this is just an ashtray. And then this one that we've seen in all the other types. You know, the foot is, the base is, see if I can get it there, has the rings. And this one that we've seen before, again with the rings. You know, as Jack likes to kid me, I collected Yukon out of existence. So I don't know if you find any. You might find, I think the cigarette holders you might still find, because I haven't been buying those. I have enough. And the final thing I got is the covered cigarette box. There's the there we go. So I'm glad I remembered it, because I really, the Yukon smokers items are one of my favorites. Okay, now I yield the floor, Jewel.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Wendy.
Can I ask? Mike, when you were talking about the oval cigarette top, were you saying that people are taking those and when there's a broken statuesque stem, they're gluing them on to the top of those things?
I wouldn't even say they had to be broken.
But they didn't make that,
They could buy, you're looking for a stem, the large stem, which is what it comes on, I believe. No, middle, David? Middle, okay. So there's a lot of middle-sized crystal nudes out there. So I bought a nude for, you know, got one with the mid-sized nude for anywhere under $100, and you find one of these ashtrays for $50, they would just merge the two together, and you've got $150 into a $750 piece.
Hey, Mike, it's
So
a
you're
little bit
saying
more
they actually
complicated.
made those? Did they actually make those?
Who, Cambridge?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's part of the nude line.
Oh, okay. Something to look for.
If you give me, David, if you want to talk about that, and I'll go grab one.
Okay. It's Wendy, not only does the top of the 1066 card holder have to be removed, but they also have to remove the foot. A typical nude stem does not have a cupped ashtray foot on it. So unless they took another nude ashtray that already came with the ashtray foot, they would have to remove the ashtray foot as well as the cigarette holder on top. So it'd have to be connected at the top and at the bottom to create like a forgery. But yes, Cambridge did make in the 3011 line the cigarette holder with ashtray foot. Mike's got one.
Oh, okay. The oval one, the oval one.
The flat looking thing here. Is that what you see?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then it's got the ashtray foot. It's a really tough piece to find. I'd love to find another one, but that's all I got after 40 years is that one.
Well, thank you so much. And I think we all want one of those. So now everybody's going to be hunting that. You understand you just created a lot, 40 people on this that want to go find one of these now. But
I hope everybody gets one, Jewel.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing that. It's so interesting to see, like, even as they went into the closing period, that they're still looking at ashtrays and even in like the Yukon line. And so you're seeing it in everything. And I find it fascinating that you find so many different items and smoking items that we go through and we go to the dash and we go through the show, and sometimes we see something and we go, yeah, that's a cigarette item. But you never think of like the butter pat also being a cigarette ashtray, or even like the little swans being a cigarette ashtray. And then here you think, nudes, we often see those types of, the cupped ashtrays, but then now you see it also in what I call the card holder ashtray or cigarette holder, pardon me. But it really shows us how many ways that they extended the line. And not only they took one shape and they added it to a nude or a statuesque, and then it was on a shorter, or then it was like the cigarette box was on a stand or it wasn't on a stand. So it makes me want to look at more things and really delve into the history of why they did the things that they did. But Mike, thank you so much for showing us all those different pieces. Obviously the collection in Cobalt is outstanding, as is the Yukon. So always a pleasure to see you go shopping at home and be able to bring it to show and tell.
My pleasure.
All right. So next we have Les, and then we'll do Jack and Elaine, please.
Okay. I think quite a few of you are aware that I collect the nude stems that are decorated. So I do have most of the Crown Tuscan ashtrays and cigarette boxes with the traditional gold incrustations of Diane, Portia, and chintz, as well as the lace transfer. And so I didn't want to take those out of the cases. I thought I'd show some really neat conversation pieces. And when we talked Crown Tuscan earlier, I think a couple of years ago, they really struggled making it in those early years, and the colors are not at all uniform. And in fact, Cambridge recalled some of it because there were so many complaints coming from the field that it really wasn't even pink. It was more tan in color. So this is a piece that I bought many years ago. It's obviously very early. And you look here, it's really light in color, not really all that pinkish, but look at inside. It's brown on top. And then it's kind of, I don't know if I should say it, but it's the poor thing. If you look at her closely, it's like she had an accident with the streaking that's in it. So again, they really struggled with uniformity of the color in those early years. And what we think happened is there was too much iron in the sand, and they were putting a lot of arsenic in to counteract that, and that would turn the glass brown. Another piece, I thought someone else would show something here with the ebony foot and the Crown Tuscan top. I think this, again, we've seen quite a few of these. 1337, I think, is the number. Now, again, these are early. They only have one appearance in a catalog in 1934. So again, it was that years that they were struggling a bit with the uniform color. I've got another one, and you can see how much darker the color is on that one. So again, later years, especially when we got to the seashell line, they had the nice, fairly uniform Crown Tuscan that was more translucent in appearance. So they got that down. My guess is they found a source of sand with less iron, or maybe even more likely, methods improved to magnetically remove the iron from the sand. The other piece I have, I think, for a good conversation piece, we've seen these little cigarette boxes before. Others have shown them. This one means a lot to me. It's enamel, and it's the George Washington bicentennial of his birth. So George Washington was born in 1732, and this is 1932. We've got a program in a few months down the line here about the enamel decorations, and maybe a little precursor there. Very short production period, about 5 years, from 1931 to 34, during the Depression. And Mark Nye has said, I don't have any documentation on this, but the enamel decorated pieces really helped the factory survive the Great Depression. The thing that's special about this to me is, you might not be able to see it there. It says William C. Smith, and it's also on the bottom. So there were, I think, 3 auctions. There were, the first one, this is about 25 years ago, I think, something like that, the Smith auctions. The first one I I drove to Ohio, and then I think the next two were during convention. So it just means a lot to me to have something from the auction. And for those that weren't familiar with those auctions, I know the first one, and this is many years ago, so money was a lot tighter, and I didn't get hardly anything. And then Welker said, well, you're trying. But the stuff in that Smith auction, I think so many people had the same feeling, that because it came from their collection, such early leaders for NCC, and we'll be hearing more about them during the convention this year, the super roles that I played, and Phyllis being the longtime editor of the Crystal Ball and really being the ambassador that reached out to so many of us with handwritten communication when we joined the club. I think a lot of people, the prices were really steep because they wanted items from that collection. So just a few items there, Julie, that mean a lot to me in the smoking area.
Well, thank you so much, Les. And I'm sorry you didn't pull the chintz out for me. I would have liked to have seen the crown and the chintz, but beautiful. And obviously, always I enjoy see the George Washington motifs that you have shown over the several Zoom meetings that we have. But again, it shows, not only is it gold encrusted, not only is it on statuesque, we also have enamels. And again, just that extension of the line. So it's always wonderful to see the various pieces that come out on Zoom, because you normally just don't see them. So this is always so exciting program for me to see what's out there. So thank you again for sharing that, Les. And next we have Jack and Elaine.
Okay, thank you, Julie. I'm going to share screen here. If tell me if I do this correctly. How about there? So can you see?
Yes.
Okay, so can you see the individual piece now?
No.
No. What are you
No.
saying?
I see the collection.
Okay.
So you have to go out, blow it up, and then come back in.
Yeah. Still see the collection?
Yes.
Huh.
I learned this the hard way.
So how do I do this again?
You have to go out, blow up the picture, and then come back in.
Okay, so you stop sharing screen. Okay, so I got to blow it up and then share screen.
Yes.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Now. How did I do this time?
Perfect. Now you might be able to
Okay.
go through with it blown up. You'll have to see. But yes, now we
Okay.
can see full size.
Okay. This I would have loved to get out. I forgot I had this when I was looking for something. This is something we got from Elaine's parents when we acquired a bunch of their glass many, many years ago. And this is the 391 8-inch ashtray cut Maryland. Very unusual piece. It's been packed away for years. I can't wait to get it back out here when we get our glass back out here shortly. But it's unusual to see a cutting on this on the large ashtray. So this is a piece. We've seen these, the 1337s, but since we were talking about, Mike talked about the cuttings, this is cut Lucia. And I think it's neat. They did the little footballs on the ashtray foot, and then had the normal cutting on it. It's I think they did a nice job on the cuttings on these. So okay, let's see. How do I get to what happened here? There we go. This is the number 885 cigarette box, and this has a cover that has the intaglio, and I'm going to show the intaglio on there so you can see. So that was the cover off, and it's got the intaglio cutting, and I always intaglio is really just a cutting, but it's a deep cut design into the glass. So I think that Cambridge did that. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Some other people might have some knowledge about that, but I believe Cambridge did do that. So,
Jack, I don't think that's a cutting. That's a very strong acid etch. They left it in a long time to really eat in. That's what
okay,
intaglio.
normally, because they termed it an intaglio design, and intaglio is a cut design, so that's why I just
But
assumed
I'm
that's what it
pretty
was.
sure it's a deep
A deep etch.
etching. Yeah.
Huh, that's interesting. Okay, I wonder why they called it intaglio then. So, okay, thank you. There's a few, Pristine did a number of star ashtrays. I thought we might see some tonight, but we didn't, so I get to show mine. And they did it in a number of different cuttings. This is the 4-inch one. And it has the rest for the cigarettes in each of the star sides there. And the next size going up is the 6.5-inch one, which is basically the same shape and everything, just a little larger size. And the next one is the 7-inch star ashtray. Now this is a little different design because what they did is, if you recognize this is the star bowl, which they put a lid on it. It's the same bottom, but they just took a tool once it came out of the mold and they made the little cigarette rests in the star side. So, and the last thing, I thought we'd dig into some of the pieces out of the Elaine collection, and a lot of these, again, you've already seen, but that's the 1066 cigarette holder with the ashtray foot in Elaine. There's the 1314 that we've of course talked about that in ad infinitum, that it's got the 1066 stem on it that in Elaine. And the 1337 in Elaine as well. So, we saw somebody else had this too. I think this was the 3500 129. This is a 3/4-inch square ashtray. Very difficult to find. It's in Elaine. Easier to find in colors. In fact, the royal blue ones you see in Farber inserts quite often, with the little pickle hangers, etc. But tough to find in Elaine. Another 3500 piece. This is the 130 4.5-inch oval ashtray. I don't know why this to me looks like a soap dish, because if you look at it, it's got the crisscross little raised bottom on it. So it'd be perfect to have a little bar of soap in there and like that happens. But I never have found where Cambridge sold this as a soap dish. It was always termed as an ashtray. So interesting piece. And Julie was talking, we'd see another thing in the ormolu holder, and here is the 131 oval ashtray in the ormolu little holder. And again, part of the Gadroon line. And here's the 615 cigarette box, just the plain cigarette box, etched Elaine. Really difficult to find these plain with the Elaine etch on them. In fact, it took me years to finally get this one. The guy that had it was keeping it because it's the same lid that would go on a nude cigarette box, and he was hoping to find an Elaine cigarette box, maybe if it didn't have the lid on it, he'd have one for it. He finally gave up hope on that and sold me the whole thing. So I was really pleased to get that. So, and then the very last thing is that in 1312 we saw this and some other things. This is gold encrusted Elaine, and it's one of our favorite pieces in the collection. It's a prize piece. This is the same cigarette box that they did put on the nude stem. So it's the same one. It's not a flat bottom. It's got kind of a tapered little bottom up there that sits on this foot. And in fact, there are a lot of people that collect items just on this foot. Well, one of them's here tonight. We'll see. I think we haven't seen his items yet, so he'll come on. So, and that's it. Thank you, Julie.
Well, thank you. And always interesting to see, like you showed, you know, it looks like a soap dish and it has an ormolu holder. So really, again, it's just interesting to see how all the pieces were decorated, but also some of the ways they would display a cigarette holder and for lack of better terms, in the holders as well. So thank you for sharing that with us, Jack. I appreciate it very much.
Julie,
Yes, Stu?
with on Jack with the Star Pristine cigarette hold the two sizes. There's actually a third size because I got a set. I bought mine as a set of 3, and they were nestling too because they made some nestling just like they had at the Caprice. And the oval, somebody had the oval with the slant top in the Cobalt. That was also a nestling set. So they made a lot of those nestling sets. They're big. They take up a lot of room. But there is a third size to that Star.
Stu, I was going to ask you, did you have anything to share tonight?
Not tonight. I
Okay.
wasn't planning on coming, but I wanted to sit on it.
Okay, well, thank
I
you.
have-
Again, appreciate the input that you have for us.
Yeah. I have 4 cases of cigarettes, smokers items. So it would to pick some out of it. I'll do it slowly but surely on some of the different meetings.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Well, now I'm going to share my screen because obviously I get pictures before the Zoom meeting. So I'm going to share mine so that we can then, if the Moores are here, Jeannie and Freeman, they sent some pictures. And then we have, hopefully he's still here, Norman's here to talk about his collection.
And Julie, we have a couple of things to show if we can.
Oh, well, why don't you go ahead then? I will not share yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'll let you go, Scott.
It'll be quick, I think.
Okay.
But it's the, where am I? Here. Oh, boy, I'm going to have trouble with my lighting. It's the Pristine 728, the 4 individual in gold crystal in the crystal holder. Ugh. I got to find a better way of showing these. It's
Hold them in front of you.
the Caprice stacking, as Stu was just talking about, in 3 different colors. And then he was talking stacking, so there's the Pristine stacking in 3 different sizes.
Hold it so they can see the slant.
Oh, yes, there's the slant.
Nobody showed it.
Yeah, very, very simple, but nobody's shown any of the square ashtrays. And then the stackaways. These happen to be in moonlight blue. And we have had probably over the years 15 sets of these, and the holders for them are unbelievable. This one just seems to be a wooden tinker toy with a tall nail in it.
Yeah.
But that's the way we found them. And these ashtrays then can be reversed, and they're candle holders. That's it.
Well, thank you. I was wondering if someone was going to have the stacks on the stack on a stick, as I like to call it, but that's really not the way you call it. But I was kind of surprised we hadn't seen that yet. So thanks for sharing with that. But it also, I liked how you showed that there were the different colors in the ashtrays that were in the stackables, in the Pristine, and also in the Caprice, but then also the tiltables, which something that Stu was discussing. So thank you for sharing that with us, because we had not really seen that really shown in that way before. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I will share my screen now, and we'll try to get to my little presentation here. Okay, so I'm going to blow this up. And I'm going to have to move everybody. Everybody has to move down. Okay, so Jeannie and Freeman, are you here? I do not hear them. So they have sent me some photos. Obviously, they have a large Mount Vernon collection. He was kind enough to obviously add the description below. And we haven't really talked about some that had lighters with them. And this was the 1624 ashtray. and the lighter is the 1625. I don't believe he has a picture of the piece, but I've recently come across some smaller pieces that very similar to this with the lighter. Here are the Mount Vernon ashtrays. I'm gonna have to move everybody so I can see these. This is the number 68 4-inch ashtrays in a variety of colors. So obviously emerald, crystal, I think that is amber. And Carmen, what is the back color? Does anyone know? It almost looks champagne-y on my screen. Anybody have an idea that color?
Might be pink.
Okay, maybe it's just the way it's lighting. Next, he provided the Mount Vernon number 63 ashtray, and one is obviously in a holder here. I'm not familiar with this mark per se, the MWC. I'm not sure. Does anyone recognize that mark? I'm not familiar with it. I know a lot of the sterling marks, but this one doesn't come to mind for me. I'm not sure if this is sterling or not sterling. I would suppose yes, but most sterling pieces are marked with a particular marking to designate the company and the time period. So
So many silver plating companies,
yeah,
dozens of them. So
yeah, hard to tell. But very interesting that I see this as a little bit different pattern almost in the Mount Vernon. I don't really think of the star shape per se as we're seeing here in the ashtray. And next, the 66 cigarette holders with and without the ashtray foot. So we obviously see one is, it looks like it's very flat. Well, maybe it's just the lighting, but very interesting to show the difference. One looks, obviously the one that's just got the rounded foot at the bottom and not the ashtray foot. It almost appears smaller to me in size. Okay, Norman, you are up, my friend. And I'm sorry, I tried to blow your pictures up so we could see them. So unfortunately, they might be a little distorted at times.
Julie, I'm sorry. The marking, the MWC,
Yes.
it's the silver plate mark. That's MW Car and Company.
Oh,
CAR.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Norman, are you here?
I am.
Excellent. So we'll let you describe it and we're going to flip through some photos for you.
So just to begin, I'm just amazed at the collections that everybody has and a little envious of some pieces. I started collecting smoking items when I quit smoking probably about 25 years ago. And I didn't realize that was probably the reason behind it, but I enjoy all the different types of pieces they had. And Cambridge is not the only company that I collect. So I tried to pull all the Cambridge items, but realized how much more I have in Cambridge in different locations throughout the house. So the first grouping on the left is, of course, cigarette holders. And with the little match holder, which I was told was a match holder, but it also looked like it could have been a business card holder of some sort. And I can't really see the stem line, but I assume that's probably the Aurora stem, or it looks like it. And then on the right is the same Chantilly piece that you mentioned, Julie, with the sterling foot.
Well, but we're going to talk about that a little bit further because the foot that you have on here is just one of 4 that I am aware of. And I'm going to show 2 at the end that are a little bit different. But I think that Wendy's might have been the same as this one. I can't quite recall. It's been a long time ago. But it was very interesting that we'll come back to this, but let's move forward here.
Yeah, it's a very delicate piece.
Yes.
Here, we have a small collection of ormolu items, which I, for some reason, like the gold ormolu. And this one I think is inset with a ashtray or butter pat. And I do think it has a lane on it, Jack. So it came like that. So I liked it. And to the right is the collection of cigarette boxes in probably all apple blossom etch, I would assume. And they are also in ormolu containers. Some are a little bit more elevated than others, are footed, and the others have four little feet at the bottom. And it's easy to remove the glass cases, the cigarette boxes, and put other cigarette boxes in if you wanted to, Rose Point or any of the other etches. There, I kind of have them displayed the way I have them displayed in my cases. Unfortunately, I would probably show you pictures of the cases, but our office area is being used as kind of an offsite office. And then on the right side is a kind of a combination of different pieces, some of which are the 1066 or 1314s and also the Mount Vernon, and then also the Tally Ho, like was shown earlier, with a little handle in the center, and of various colors: heather bloom, amber, cobalt blue, royal blue, and crown Tuscan, and very light crown Tuscan, I must say. And then gold Rose Point etch, and that's it. Here we have a large combination of the cigarette holders with the cupped bottoms, which were the ashtrays, multiple etches, multiple colors. I didn't realize how many I had, and so I started pulling them out of the cabinet and had them all on display. And they're kind of hard to take a picture of everything and be able to see it, but there's many different etches involved, not as many cuttings. I find that we don't find as many cuttings down here in Houston. We find more etches and solid colors. Of course, Max Miller is a great resource.
Okay.
And here you find the footed and unfooted cigarette boxes. And I do have one in heather bloom. The other one next to it is amethyst, and then a combination of different etches. Probably I can't see the etches on them, but I'm sure it's Diane and Portia. And then the big box in the center, which has the domed lid, is Rose Point, and then there's a smaller Rose Point on the side. In the next one, these are all ashtrays, footed. Probably the 1066 Aurora stem line, except for the ones up front, which are just plain stems and etched. And then the crown Tuscan has Portia etch on it, if I remember correctly. And here is the little cigarette holders, which also could be used, for a cocktail. But they don't all have cupped feet, as you can tell. Maybe they are torchère type stem lines that were used for drinking, but I always thought they were cigarette holders. And then on the right is an example of the statuesque line with the cigarette holder. And this one I was told was mocha when I bought it. And I have a lot of ashtrays, as you can see. I don't think I have every color, but I have a lot of colors. And, some of them are crown Tuscan etched. I don't think I have any that are crystal etched or colored etched, just crown Tuscan. Maybe somebody can add to that, I've never seen one that's etched that was not Crown Tuscan.
There's a Carmen one out there with gold encrusted Porsche. So,
Yeah, that one I've seen before. And then to the right, I took a picture of the top of the cigarette box on the Rose Point one, which is Crown Tuscan with gold Rose Point, primarily because if you look at the sides, it doesn't have the Rose Point medallion on the sides. It's only on the lid. And this gives you more of a clear view of the boxes. The boxes I find are very hard to find intact, often missing lids here. But luckily, I started collecting early enough to be able to find a few that had lids. And I have Carmen, I have Gold Crystal, I have Crown Tuscan, I have Crystal with Diane or Portia. And the Crown Tuscan Rose Point, unfortunately for a lot of collectors in Houston, I was the first one they called about. Well, I was the second one they called about that one. And it came out of a elderly lady's home, and she was selling it. And I think she got it as a wedding gift from Marshall Fields. So it was actually out of San Antonio.
And Norm, we've talked about that piece before. What's unusual about it is the foot is not gold encrusted with the Rose Point. And yeah, normally the foot is as well. I've got a Porsche like this one that doesn't have it on the foot. Still beautiful without it on the foot.
Well, at first, that was a point in time where when I bought it, that we didn't have cell phones that you could send a clear picture or text or anything like that. And I had a little BlackBerry phone on me, and I was on the hunt about 200 miles from Houston on a weekend, and the person actually sent me a picture of it, and I was like, oh, it really is Rose Point. So I was fortunate enough to happen on that one. And it's probably one of the nicer pieces in our collection. And I think that's it for me.
Okay. Well, it's an outstanding collection, just outstanding. It's so many different varieties, etched, clear, gold encrusted, different colors, different shapes. Fascinating. When I got all these pictures, I'm like, oh, I don't have time to really look at them. And I was trying to blow them up and not be too distorted, but it's, I'm sure it's just wonderful to see it in the case. It's probably just wonderful. But I will give you kudos for adding the cigarettes to make it look realistic.
Oh, well, thank you. In that case, cigarettes.
Yes. Well, even the long holder, like a woman would use. It was very interesting. So thank you so much for sharing these. It was really wonderful to receive all the photographs, and I'm sure it really allows us a great appreciation of all the different colors, shapes, sizes, and variety that comes with smoking items. So I'm going to come back to a little bit about what he was saying is that Chantilly, and I'm sorry, the one picture is blurry on the side. I collect Chantilly extensively. I have an ungodly amount of pieces, probably close to 600. But I found it very interesting when I first started collecting this. I got the book that Mark Nye put out. It's yellow covered through the museum and purchased it. And what I found interesting is he said Chantilly was not really made in smoking items. And so when I saw the ashtray, I had seen it looked at as a favor vase, but I knew it as a smoking item. So it was really interesting to me that I would see these items come up and that they're quite different. So as you see on the left, this is a sterling bottom. And so I'm not sure who made it. It's really not marked well. I couldn't find out who made it. But Chantilly is one of those patterns that shows up not only in sterling, but on Farber And then the sterling changed from different manufacturers. So such as the one that was shown previously, you can see a small base versus the larger base. But then I have another one, as you saw earlier, that it's more decorative on the base, on the Marie base. So it's kind of interesting. And then I came across, sorry, this one's blurry, again on the 1337. And then I found, obviously, the cigarette box, which I was really surprised to see, because when I first started collecting, again, I was told it doesn't come on, you don't find smoker items. So I don't have a lot of smoker items, but what I have is kind of interesting. So that's really all I have to share on those. But the one piece I did most recently get is this piece, and I'm sorry, this is going to show up terrible. Maybe we can just see the etch. It's Chantilly. It is not round. It is actually the business card style. And I had seen this piece almost 15 years ago, 20 years ago on eBay when I was first on eBay, and I was heartbroken to find I got outbid. Lo and behold, the person I knew who purchased it told her how lucky she was to have it. And most recently, I was able to purchase it from her collection. So I'm really grateful that she and I share the love of Chantilly, but she had a love for smoker items as well. But I'm happy to have it in my collection. So that's really all I have to share tonight on the smoking items. As always, I want to really, really extend my great thanks to everyone who has provided pieces to share tonight. This is, I think, one of our most popular programs that we've had as far as smoking items. And so with that, again, thanks to everyone that shared. It's always a pleasure to see what comes over Zoom and to see have everyone share. Absolutely. So with that, I am going to turn this back over to David for a few closing words.
Thank you, Julie. I just want to echo what you said, that it's always amazing what we see each month here on Zoom and Tell. And it's without the participants sharing their glass and parts of their collections, this wouldn't happen. But we always have great participation among our guests, and it's always great if they're willing to do that. And I want to just do a shout out to Wendy and thank her for volunteering. Well, I guess she volunteered. She was asked and she agreed to do the program this evening. And Wendy, I just want to appreciate you doing that for us, and you did a great job. Thank you very much. And you can see that there are a lot of collectors out there that enjoy the same things that you do. Next month, Les Hansen is going to do a program on the Cambridge Swans. So a lot of us may not collect swans, but we certainly do have a few examples in the collection. So I'll give you about a month to take a look at your display cases, and you can start looking at which swans you might want to share with those guests in June. Now, the June program is going to be getting pretty close to convention. So I think we were talking before the program started. Julie and Christine Smith are convention chairs this year. So if you're able to make it to convention, that would be wonderful to actually meet some of our Zoomers at convention this year. I know last year, a few people that I had never met personally were able to make it. So I hope you can make it this year as well. So Swans next month. And then I'll give you an update next month on the next program. I'm hoping in July, we'll be talking about pitchers and water sets, working on a presenter for that. So if anyone would like to present on pitchers and water sets, if you're a collector of those items, that would be great to have a presenter for that. So Julie, that's all I've got this evening. And thank you again for everyone joining and sharing their glass.
Thanks, David. And again, thank you all for attending. I mean, when we started doing Zoom, I think almost 2 years ago, we never imagined it would be a program that would be an extended program. You know, we did it because COVID was here. We wanted to get together. But personally, for me, I find this one of the days I look forward to most in the month. I enjoy moderating. I enjoy seeing everyone. when someone's not here, I get a little worried that we haven't seen them. So we do miss you when you're not here. But certainly I find this a great way to share glass and a great way to have fellowship with all of us that have the same desire to collect glass, preserve it, and really keep the historical nature behind the popularity of glass and why it was made and how it was used. And so I really do enjoy this. And I, again, thank everyone for coming and for sharing. And if you didn't share this month, we know you'll share another month. So thank you to everyone. I hope you all have a great evening. And again, thank you, Wendy, so much for spending your time researching and also sharing your glass collection with us.